Hello, and welcome to Catholicism in the Car. My name is Parker Zerbal. Today I'd like to talk about something that's been on my mind for a little while. I recently wrote a blog post on this, and also have just been continually struck by YouTube videos made by Dr. Gavin Ortlund with the YouTube channel Truth Unites. He is a Baptist pastor. He has his doctorate in historical theology, and he makes a lot of videos about giving Protestants a historical background for their faith. Now, I find this so edifying in light of the famous or infamous, whichever side you come to this on, quote of St. John Henry Newman. Newman says, "To be steeped in history is to cease to be Protestant." Now, I think, oftentimes this quote is taken out of context. It's used for things that aren't necessarily useful. But in its normal polemical sense on the Catholic side, I've generally taken this statement as true. And to a certain extent, I still do. I'm still a very convicted Catholic. If Catholicism ended up not being true, Eastern Orthodoxy would definitely be the way I would go, or Oriental Orthodoxy. Protestantism would be pretty far down on my list. However, Dr. Ortlund's videos have given me pause and have made me think much more deeply about how Protestants understand themselves. Or maybe a lot of Protestants don't even understand themselves in this way, but it's kind of allowed me to steelman a lot of the Protestant arguments that I think I would definitely strawman, and I think a lot of Protestants strawman themselves on these issues, particularly on the historical side of things. For example, it is often alleged by Catholics and Orthodox that Protestants did not exist until the 16th century, 1517, with Martin Luther posting his 92 Theses upon the church door of Wittenberg. And while, strictly this certainly is true, the early Protestants, at least as far as I can tell today, didn't see themselves as a breakaway church. They saw themselves as carrying on the time-told traditions that the church had held for millennia. And they saw the larger church, the Catholic Church, as having lost its way. I know particularly Missouri Synod Lutherans take this view today. Well, truth be told, they're the only ones that I know of for sure that take this view down to the present day. Maybe some Anglo-Catholics would in the Anglican denominations. Maybe some Calvinists would also ascribe to this. But a lot of the later Protestants don't or can't in a real sense, because they don't have a structural, organizational, or ideological lineage even back to the first Protestants. Baptists, for example, which I would say compose most evangelicals. Most evangelicals have a Baptist kind of bent to them. Baptists are kind of a amalgamation of Calvinism and Zwinglianism. Often Baptists are more Calvinistic in their understanding of salvation or soteriology, but when it comes to things like sacraments, particularly the sacrament of the Eucharist, they're more Calvinistic, or even more often they're Zwinglian on this view. So Calvin, on the subject of the Eucharist, believed that there was a real presence, but it was a spiritual presence, not any sort of physical, bodily, transubstantiated or consubstantiated presence. Zwingli, on the other hand, said it was a totally metaphorical presence. So it was just a metaphor. Now that I'm thinking about it, I guess Baptists are kind of an amalgamation of almost every early Protestant sect, because they also, on the question of baptism itself, they don't believe in baptismal regeneration, and so they take more of an Anabaptist view, as much as many of them would probably hate being affiliated with Anabaptists, especially the early Anabaptists. And then on things like Sola Scriptura and Sola Fide, they definitely take a more a Lutheran stance, as did, as far as I know, virtually all of the Protestant reformers up until John Wesley, with the Methodists. Okay. I hope that this is helpful for you. Give some context, and just arrived to work so we can pick this up where we left off, talking about Protestantism and how it relates to today, how it sees itself today, and how, if it understands itself historically, I think it can bolster itself much better.